Oh, also, we have a model here. Come, 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 come. You see this wonderful shirt? Now it's cheaper, only 375 pesos. 350. Take them while they last. How do we do this? Oh. Okay. And then there are some certificates of participation here, which we will arrange alphabetically. Later during the break, you can pick them up.
It's very important for us that you leave us your feedback sheets. May I know who of the commission is getting the feedback sheets and where? Where can they leave it? Can there be Yes, when you get your certificate of participation, please give your feedback sheets also to the same person manning the table. We're going to try and set up, or even, here or outside. We'll set up here later, no? During the break time. So the feedback sheets, please fill them up. Yes. Susan, please stand. Susan will be the one that will stay there with participation certificates of participation, and please give her your feedback sheets. For the payment, Renata is upstairs in the registry, just right outside the registration. Okay, so how's everybody? I think all our voices are about to go. Did you enjoy yourselves last night? Yes. It was really an atmosphere of family, no? And we hope that in some way we were able to also share, especially with those who are in the Philippines, from other countries. We wanted very much to share our culture in dance and in song. As you can see, we are a very carefree, happy people. More than being organized or anything, we are carefree. Okay, so I hope you won't mind, but I'm not going to do a recap of yesterday because today we are full. We have, it's just as important as the other days. So I hope that our full attention is still here, and we will have the Mass later, celebrated by the Bishop of the Diocese, who also has a message for us. And because of that, we will be a little, we'll have to catch up on our time. As it is, we are going to finish, hopefully, at 1 o'clock. So if you don't want to be hungry until 2, we will please try to observe the time. So this morning, and I'm supposed to be the MC for the morning, and I don't have the biodata of the speakers. But in any case, the first speaker is a balik scientist. No? The reason why I was looking at Yob here is because I just keep remembering he's my cousin-in-law. But that is not a very professional introduction. He's a balik scientist. But Yob, I will ask you to also say a little, to introduce yourself, no? Because in absence of your CV in front of me, he's a Filipino by descent, but an Australian by citizenship, and has been in Australia for 41 years. But I thought you were only 40. So how's it possible? Anyway, so without much ado, I give you Yob, Dr. Yob Doronila.
Morning, everyone. Is it all right if I just stand here? Because I realize it's probably easy. But I just want to qualify what Tess said about relatives, because obviously we're one family, but Francis and I are cousins because his mother and my mother are sisters. But the wonderful thing is, Francis met the ideal through Tess, and I met the ideal in Australia from the first focal arena that went there. So God has very interesting ways of making us belong to this wonderful family. Oh, I have to go up, I'm sorry. And is that okay? So I just want to say that if the translators find me going too fast, just slow me down. But essentially, I just want to share what Tess invited me to give a talk as an ecologist, as an environmental scientist, so that to give a different perspective to the reality of economy of communion. But just in a few brief words, you know, I am proud to be a Filipino, and one of the gifts of being a Filipino is also to know that I come from a place which is a beautiful heritage, a natural heritage. And so the last 6 years I have been coming here on the invitation of the Philippine Department of Science and Technology to collaborate with some really wonderful Filipino scientists who are doing their utmost to help the environment. So this will not be a very sciencey talk, but as you see that the title is The Care for the Environment, and so it is based on the experience of people of the economy of communion and how they really have, you know, from the profound reality of the economy of communion, that we have this consequence of caring for the world around us. So next slide, please. So this is probably the most wordy slide that you will see. So this is a crash course in ecology. If you know that, you don't need to go to university for 15 years. So for the benefit of the non-ecologists, which I imagine most of you are, if we look at the root of the word ecology and the root of the word economy, they are the same, they come from the same root. So ecology, you know, the discipline started about 100 years ago, but it comes from, derived from the Greek word oikos, which is house. So it's all about the household. And so our understanding of ecology is about learning about the relationships in the house, you know, like the kitchen, the place where we sleep, the plant, you know. So everything, in one sense, you can define it as ecology. So it is our relationship of the living part of the world with everything that is around us. So just like in a house. So I say, as the definition there, it is the study of the habitat, and it is all about the interrelationship of the organisms with the environment. So it's all about relationships. And so if you go to economy then, it also comes from oikos, but it is all about the rules and the laws, and really it's derived from how you manage that house. So the household as the relationship and the household as how you run it are two same things. So there's the three definitions there. It's about the management of household affairs. And I like it because in the official definitions is about how we efficiently use these resources, how we're frugal, and the structure of economic life. So in other words, it's all about relationships in ecology, and economy speaks about use. But nowadays, it seems like there is a divide, you know. Why are these two wonderful words, they really have no connection? So this is a real challenge, and I think these past few days you have been trying to join this divide. So as you can see here, you know, I just showed this slide. It's all about, you know, the choices that we make can really have a big impact on the world around us. So, you know, I think when the Pope came here to the Philippines, he expressed his concern that, you know, we are living on a beautiful planet that we have really turned into a pile of filth, as the words of the Pope said. But, you know, it shouldn't be like that. Next one, please. Okay, so I just want to then essentially talk about something that as an initiative of the economy of communion, one of the pioneers, if you like, among you is this person called John Mondale from the United States. John is the president of an environmental engineering company, and their work is to clean up environmental pollution, look at environmental compliance. And so John not only really tries to adhere and create the conditions for the economy of communion in his business. But he and his working group have come up with ways to help us also see, well, how can we actually motivate people in caring for the environment, also with the economic factor. So more or less exactly a year ago, they came out with, just before the Pope's encyclical, with a cube. It's called the Earth Cube. And it is a wonderful thing that in these 12 months, there has been a very big uptake of this cube, where it helps us take care of this wonderful planet, our home. So it helps us change our personal responses. And so if you go to the website, earthcube.org, you can download it, and it has essentially 6 sides, which has a catchphrase, which we can help to try to think about with our workmates, how we can do something for the planet. And so I'll just work through these 6 examples. Next slide, please. But I just want to start off with a wonderful thing, because I think a number of you are aware that a month ago there was the Mariapolis of the city of Rome, and they had a surprise guest. And so this is in one of the parks there, in a place called Villa Borghese, where they had an open forum for 4 days. But I want to point out that they had a lot of very important sponsors, like IKEA, which is very big in Australia, and some of the big corporations in Italy who really supported them. So there were 4,000 people who went to that Mariapolis. But the next slide, please. But the surprise is Pope Francis came. They invited him, and they didn't know whether he was going to come, but he came. And next slide, please. But then the young people gifted him with one of these, so they explained to him what it was all about, and this is very close to the Pope's heart. And so the Pope was there for an hour with the people of the Mariapolis. He listened to the experiences of how the people who are imbued with this spirituality and the other people there try to make a difference to the world around them and the people there. And next slide, please. But this is what the Pope said in the end, which very touched me a lot too, when he told the people there, "You are doing a good job transforming deserts into forests. The deserts in our hearts, cities and suburbs, even those in protected areas, are unpleasant." So he made this analogy that, you know, the emptiness in the lives around us, also the destruction that we cause on our planet can be changed. So he said it's full of greenery, but it is disorderly, but such is life. Next one. So therefore, I just want to go through the 6 sides of the cube and illustrate it with 6 experiences. So if you like 6 sides, it's also like 10 to the 6 or a million ways in which we can make a difference in our planet. And so these are experiences of people who I know in Australia, including mine, obviously, where we tried to have a forum during our Mariapolis where we shared what we could do. So I just want to start off with the first side, which is all about our connectedness. So these are the different points. You know, we ask ourselves, everything on the planet is in relationship with everything else. So our cities, the forests, and the oceans. So we just put these 3 points saying, well, what can we do? But the thing I like most is the last one, you know. Often it is the most vulnerable that pay the price of this disconnection. So how do we see ourselves in reconnecting, if you like? So let's go to the experience that we illustrate. So I want to show you this experience of the part of the world that we look after in the focal area, where there are 30,000 islands. And so a little island is this place called Kiribati, which is almost as far as the Philippines to Melbourne. Next one, please. Okay, next one. Okay, so I just want to point out that the president of Kiribati he's the ex-president, he just finished his term, has had a long appeal with the world, because essentially their islands will disappear in 20 years. They are only 3 meters above sea level, and so they have to abandon their islands in the next 10, 20 years. But what he said is, you know, they need to prepare to leave. 100,000 people have to leave their islands, and they are going to transfer to Fiji. The Fijian government has sold them one of their islands, but then, so they're preparing the infrastructure. But this is what he said: we may lose our country, but we do not want to lose our dignity and become a burden to the countries where we have to migrate. They are going to be the first climate change refugees in the world. So this little island here holds half of the population, and we have a project in one of the poorest villages called Bota. Next one, please. And so these things you see in the Philippines too. This is the impact of tidal surges. But this man over there, his name is Ziotake. He came to our Mariapolis. He has been living the ideal for 30 years, living the word of life. But he just finished as a seaman, a maritime seaman in the commercial ship. And he decided to go early retirement a few months ago to come to the Mariapolis because he felt that no one had been to Mariapolis in his island, and he wanted to be the first one to experience that, even though they have been living as a group over there, so that he can bring the life of what he lived with in a collective. So this is one of the projects that we're supporting there together with Azione per il Mondo Nito. But I think this grows parallels to what you saw in Banco Kabayan, that there was these microfinancing projects that we were helping them support. But it's really more not just lively, but it's more creating the capacity for them when they change. Because imagine, I think for some of us who've made the experience of leaving the country we lose our culture. Oh, but so we went there, a group of us went there and showed how proud they were that they were doing all these things to have the capacity to live something positive. It's like leaving the promised land, if you like. The Israelites leaving everything that's beautiful, if you like, but they're preparing. So that's one experience. The next one. Next thing is smiling on the world. So in many ways, smiling is also doing something good, because when we're generous, we really generate smiles in ourselves and others. So there's some of the points. You'll have it in the handouts anyway, but I don't really want to dwell on it. But what are the positive things we can do? We can recycle, reuse objects, not use too much water, plant a community garden. So we can do little things, but we can also do big things. Next one, please. So this is an experience that I lived through, where I took a whole group of Filipino scientists to some of the mining impacted areas in remote Australia. So this was about a wonderful project where the indigenous people have been trying to repair their land, which had been mined. So this mine was mined for nearly 20 years, but they extracted $2 billion worth of lead and zinc. So they had a big hole in the ground of operation. But the problem was the water that came from the mine was quite toxic. And so they just couldn't walk out of that. But what happened was I met the traditional people. So next slide, please. And this was where the beautiful story was, because I met one of the traditional elders. Her name is Lenore Dembski. And we made a connection immediately. But the interesting thing is, this lady is actually part Filipina. Her great-grandfather was a musician from Albay and migrated there, and he married her grandmother, and that she has never been to the Philippines. She only knows very little stories about the Philippines, but she's proud of her Filipino heritage. And so we had an immediate connection, and she helped me with a project as a continuation of this in the Philippines, where she gave all her learnings to share with the indigenous people of how to fix destroyed ecosystems. Next one, please. And so one of the things that they realized was, they suffered a lot because where the mining was their sacred site. But then they felt that if they were involved in repairing that land, they could also use that to teach the next generation about the beautiful things about their land. So they asked the tribal elders to tell the stories of the plants and the animals in that land. So they started learning. Well, they asked the mining company if they could do that. Instead of being victims, they wanted to be protagonists. So they found the plants that they needed to grow. And it also created a business, an industry, which the local community could be part of. They did everything on a very transparent basis. And as you can see, they've been trying to fix what had been damaged. Next one, please. So I just wanted to bring out the point, like this is one of the areas they wanted to recreate into a swamp. But the important thing is they became engaged, that they became stakeholders in a land that had been destroyed, which had sacred values, but they could do it. And they were showing the world how to do it. And I've been there several times and it works. But it was all based on relationship, and she came and helped us. Next one, please. So next one is only what is needed. So how are we going to live sustainability on this planet? You know, we don't just take, and take. So important thing is we need to separate our wants from our needs. Nothing more, nothing less. So let's minimize our negative impact. So next slide, please. So I want to share an experience of Rosette, who is a Filipina who lives in Sydney, and her husband, Eric. And so she has a very interesting job. She's a project manager for a mining company in New Guinea. But then she said one of the reasons why she liked working for this mining company is because they are really putting sustainability into all their work processes. So what they have to do is my exploration company has to drill in different parts of the highlands. So one of the problems in social development is if you build a road in these remote areas, you destroy the lifestyle of the local people because, you know, just encroaching of civilization, if like. So the company realized where they explore, they can bring in things with helicopters, but they took away all the waste material and reduce the impact so that within 2 or 3 years, the forest will grow back. Because that's the thing too in the tropics, the forest will grow back in a place that has been cleared for exploration. So she was in charge of putting into practice all the real state-of-the-art closure projects. And, you know, she said that they were all very serious about it, and it really created a change in the company. So it can be done, that's the main thing. Next one. And the next thing is about, really, we have to stop a moment and discover that our natural world is full of so many amazing and beautiful things. So we don't need to look at our iPads and then swipe it and say, oh, this is beautiful. Just go out there and look at the garden. This morning I opened my window and I saw this makopa tree. I hadn't seen a makopa tree for 30 years and it was full of fruit. And that really gave me joy. So, you know, all these examples, think about the mountains, the people, the plants and the animals. So we asked the question, what unique natural phenomenon can you learn about today? Today I saw the makopa tree and that gave me joy. Next one. So I just want to show you an interesting thing of the project I've been involved in, because one of the things we discovered here in the Philippines is where they mine for nickel. We have forests of plants that have a lot of liquid nickel. So we're discovering maybe they live in such tough environments. Maybe we can use that in ways also of creating livelihoods for the communities that have been displaced by this mining. So for example, you see the green dagta there. That has more nickel than your spoons and forks and your knives, or the hubcaps, or things in your watch. So that creates potential that here in the Philippines we have forests of nickel drinking plants. And you know, as you think beyond the box, it could be something good. So that's the tree there. So that's the green sap there. So it's a wonderful thing, but we don't know about it. We have to care for those. Next one. So now, you know, we have to realize everything is a gift. So see everything, all the people we have as a gift. So, you know, it's a very good attitude. And we don't see them most of the time. So next one. So I just want to share an experience of one of our people of the movement there. She just recently retired, Marie. So she said she wanted to go to a remote Aboriginal community and serve in the mission. The mandate of the mission had changed. So now they're really of service rather than, if you like, trying to turn the Aboriginal people into Christians. But so it was of service. So it's called Kalambaru. Actually, there were a lot of Filipinos who went there 150 years ago as pearl divers. So by work, I also learned about the Filipinos in Australia. Next one. And so this is just an example of what Marie and the volunteers do. These are the two priests from Africa who are really connected with the indigenous people there. But as you can see, it's been a service because they run the gasoline station, they run the bakery with the people there, but it's become a partnership rather than making the local people, if you like, so dependent on the church. But you know, it's become such a vibrant experience, and she got so much out of that. And next one. And so this is the last one, maybe I dwell on it a bit more. It's about this experience, it is called On Now is the Time. So, you know, if you want to do something for the environment, I do it now. So next one. So I want to show you this because in our Mariapolis in January, we had a group of young people from this little island called Wallis, which has got 12,000 people. What happened was, it was nice to speak to Anouk yesterday because she filled in some of the dots for me, because the experience started in France because there is a Focolarina who lives in France, and there's a young person, a Jen, from these islands who is studying there. And so she comes to this island in Wallis, so it's a French protectorate. But what happened was, one of the Focolarina there, she's from the islands, and some of the young people went and lived 3 weeks with the people in Wallis. And so it was such a powerful experience of reciprocity. But what struck me was when they came to the Mariapolis, they wanted to share this experience about what they were doing for the little island. So it's nice, because these are the words, these are what they shared with the Mariapolis. We heard Pope Francis call asking us to react in front of the danger threatening our planet. We decided to try to make a change in Wallis on our scale, even though it doesn't seem much more important to the world scale. We had to begin somewhere, so now is the time. I like it, they say, our mission was so simple, to collect waste and then take it to the garbage center. But those are simple words. The whole experience was more powerful because they captivated the communities over there. And so it unleashed so much generosity in those people that 35 of these young people came to the Mariapolis. And in an island with 12,000 people, there is not a lot of money, but they were able to pay for the airfares, which is very expensive, and their time to the Mariapolis, and also help other people from some of the other islands. 1/3 of our Mariapolis, of 600 people, came from those little islands. And they showed us what is the power of providence and if there is generosity there. And that was the biggest experience. So next one. So just some pictures of what they did. It's not just collecting rubbish, it's about reciprocity. Next one. So there they are. So they actually went to another island, cleaned up the island. There's a Marian shrine there, but you know, the Jen from France really felt such a powerful uplift from doing that. And then we're looking for the next few years further projects. But one thing we hope that in 2 years, when we have the Gen Fest here in the Philippines, that a big group of them will come, and that they're already working. Next one. So I just want to finish with this then. You know, this is one of the cartoons from the COP21 in Paris about the climate change summit. So, you know, there's a good question to ask. You know, if someone says, well, I don't believe in, you know, the world is being degraded, there's no climate change. So the guy on the podium is saying, well, this is the business case for doing something good, because, you know, what if it's a fake? But then he says, well, you know, if we do something, we become independent with our energy use, we preserve our rainforests, there's sustainability, the green jobs, livable cities, renewables, clean water, etc., etc. So even though if it's a hoax, if we do something, we change our mentality. These are the benefits that happen. So next one. So I just want to finish with this. So for the non-Filipinos, this is one of the paintings from one of the very first Filipino fine artists 100 years ago, like One Luna and all that. So they painted some of our beautiful rainforest. So this is the ilang-ilang. And if you don't know what the ilang-ilang is, it is one of our most loved, I hope, still in the Philippines, rainforest trees. And the name ilang-ilang is all about, it means wilderness. So it alludes to the natural habitat. And also it means rare because it's so delicate. It is suggestive, it has an exceptional aroma. And it is the main floral scent of the French perfume Chanel No. 5. It comes from the Philippines. So what happened was, I wanted to show this to you because I was staying with Francis and Tess a few months ago. And I woke up in the morning. Yes. Oh, yes, I'll just repeat. So the reason why I wanted to show this picture was because I stayed at Francis and Tess in February when we came for the anniversary. And I could smell this wonderful scent. So I ran out to their garden and I saw it. I said, I knew it was an ilang-ilang. And their ilang-ilang tree was full of flowers. So it was such a gift for me to see, well, one of the trees that I know most about is in their garden. And so I just wanted to finish off with what I thought about that, because it was such a gift. So, really this thing that, the ilang-ilang, we probably have lost this consciousness in the Philippines that we're one of the most fantastic scents in the world that gives a lot of joy to so many people. I mean, it's also worth a lot of money. But then, I would like to make the analogy that the fragrance of the ilang-ilang is like the economy of communion, as it expresses the vitality of life that God has instilled on our planet. Following from what Pope Francis told the people in the Mariapolis village in Rome, I am sure that what you have seen and heard over these days give witness to transforming the social and environmental deserts into forests. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Job. When I saw the presentation that you sent before, I said, what's the connection of ilang-ilang? We sell this in the street, children sell this together with a sampaguita, no? I mean, it's really so common. After a while, we didn't realize that it was something really precious also to offer to everyone. But thank you for your analogy of the economy of communion and this exotic scent that pervades, that is given value in so many parts of the world, and how we can indeed, even through the economy of communion, together with ECO1 and all the other inundations, so MPPU, contribute to really reforesting what has become an arid land in more ways than one. Thank you. Now, I'd like to call Vic to introduce our next speaker.
Our next speaker, I got the chance to work with him maybe more than 20 years ago when we started to work. He was starting out his architectural practice, and through some friends in the Focolare also, plus some of his staff, we tried to design certain houses that were for the poor, no? But that was 20 years ago. Ever since that time, he has already been an advocate of green building. That is something that is sustainable designs, no? So much so that we found each other years later again when there was this new group that was being formed called the Philippine Green Building Initiative. It's an interesting organization in the sense that it brings together different professionals from different fields: mechanical engineers, architects, structural engineers, electrical engineers, plumbing and sanitary, in order to come out and work together and build something sustainable. No? I will not talk about his projects because he's going to do it, but he has been an advocate ever since. Friends, I'd like to introduce you, Architect Dom Galicia.
Good morning, everyone. I think a good illustration of climate change is my own experience with this hall. Because I remember this hall from when I was maybe 10 or 12 years old. And I used to come here for the Mariapolis as a gen. And we did not need to have air conditioning. any time of the year, the windows were open, and really the breeze was sufficient. So, oops. So, the previous speaker shared experiences of the economy of sharing. My experience really comes in the form of projects, architectural projects, and so I will begin with a house. But first, I want to just say that the title of the talk, Mitigating Climate Change, was given to me, and I actually had to. When I think about the word mitigate, I mean, to mitigate is to make gentle, to make more humane. And it made me think that that really is our role as architects, or our role as professionals in whatever field we are in. It is to make more humane the reality that surrounds us. And so in the case of architects, it is to make more humane the environment, the built environment that comprises architecture. And this is really the key thesis of our work. We do not see ourselves as green architects or architects focused on sustainability. We see ourselves as architects focused on architecture. Since the earliest days of our practice, we realized that the best architecture came from an understanding of the site, of course, of the client and of the budget and of the program, but in a very rich way, the site. And what comes with the site, the terrain, the climate, the breezes, the sun. It may not be a scientific fact, but I have a feeling that the sun never enters a room in quite the same way, ever. There's always something unique about the way that light comes into a space or the way that breezes come into a space. And so that infinite richness of circumstance is a great inspiration to one as an architect. I will show these images here are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 projects, and depending on the economy of my sharing, I hope I'll be able to show them all to you. No? But we will start with a house. It's a house in Mandaluyong for a couple and their 2 children, and you see here the approach, the main entrance. It's a 4-story house. It's a series of rooms that wrap around a light well. It's a light well, but it's also a wind tower. This is a section. I cut a cross-section of the house, and the idea came from the client who had been to Iran and was fascinated by the wind towers there called Shabestan. So we call this project Shabestan House. It is not strictly a Shabestan, but the name stuck. The idea is that the light well in the center of the house acts as a kind of a chimney that draws in the breezes from below. So because of the kind of vacuum that happens here, and there is an escape for the air up here in this upper roof, there's a constant flow of air, and it helps to cool the house. So that is the main, so this idea of cooling the house is the central idea of the house. But architecturally, it also became interesting that this light well is a tower of emptiness. It's a void that lets in, if you will, the gifts of God, the breezes. It's a hollow core of this house, and it's a kind of humility of this house that it is empty at its core, and that emptiness at the core enables the climate to be mitigated. It's a view of the entrance court. The rain falls from the roof onto the gravel, which also forms an interesting pattern in the court. The main door, and in front of you here is already the light well. That light well has a tiled floor, and you can see how it opens out to the living room, and you can see the stairs that begin to go around the light well. And this is the living room, dining room, and these windows are generally open. There are insect screens here such that the breezes are able to come in and go up the wind tower. When you're at the center on the ground floor, when you look up, this is what you see. It is a wind tower that is wrapped in glass block, and that glass block helps to illuminate the staircase that goes around it. And at the very top, there's a nice place to relax and hang out and look at the sunset, and that is where the hot air escapes through these windows. There's a skylight up here, and you'd think, actually, the skylight heats the air that is closest to it and encourages that air to escape. You keep the hot air up, and it rises and escapes, further drawing in more air from below to come in. So while we were doing this project, we also got another project to do a memorial chapel and columbarium for Loyola in Sucat. And so the idea of a wind tower came into the picture. The client in this memorial park wanted to create a landmark, a image for Loyola that was visible in the landscape. And so we combined that desire for a landmark with the lessons we were learning with the movement of wind. So we have the tall roof that you saw in the earlier picture. We also have a secondary glass roof, which is immediately over the chapel spaces below. And the gap between that outer roof and the inner roof creates an air movement. So the air also is encouraged to come in and escape out through glass louvers in the upper point of the roof. So this is a climatic response. It's the idea of a double roof in our climate is very useful. You have one surface that immediately captures the direct heat of the sun, and you create a big gap between that first response and your actual roof. But it was also interesting for this project because this was a memorial chapel. And so the idea of the nature of the space, light entering the space, light but not heat, because the double layers are helping to cut the heat down to simply its light. And so here is again an illustration of one of the wonders of the opportunity that a response to climate gives you. That candid and frank and humble response to climate gives gifts in terms of architectural experience. We're able to create a space that brings comfort to the users of this funeral chapel. Normally, funeral chapels are dark and do not have natural light, but we believe so strongly in the therapeutic power of natural light, so we need to bring it into the experience of these people who are in most need of that. So we have light that comes in. It's a wonder to see light, natural light coming in and touching different surfaces of an interior space at different times of the day. And when you look up, you see something that's also suggestive of things. The next project is a church in Antipolo, and if is Carlito here? I thank Carlito for this project because he's the one who, he's not here. Oh, he's here. Oh, hello, Carlito. You are to be thanked or blamed for this. This is the Church of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Carlito Villarasa is a structural engineer with whom I have a long-standing collaboration on several of our projects. Carlito is our structural engineer. It's a wonderful experience because it becomes a real fruit of collaboration within the environment of responding to the circumstances of a project. In Antipolo, to create a space that lets in the light, lets in the breezes. An essential rule of our practice is, in Tagalog, kunyari walang kuryente. Kunyari walang kuryente means pretend there's no electricity. Of course there is electricity. Of course you have natural light. Of course you have air conditioning, but you pretend you don't. And so the architectural form becomes more interesting. In this case, this desire to not use electricity, plus in the story of this parish of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, the story of Fatima. And for us, one of the aspects of the story was the shifting of the sun, which is why you notice in the plan, the skylight, the main roof, the uppermost part of the roof shifts. You know, that is the skylight that carries the cross. Another project that Carlito and I worked on is Magallanes Church. Magallanes Church was designed by a national artist for architecture, Leandro Locsin, in the late 1960s, and it burned in 2000 or so. And there was a competition to choose an architect, and fortunately we won. And one of the suggestions given to us, although we had a proposal to preserve what survived the fire, one of the suggestions was tear down the ruin. Just tear it down. And we were able to persuade them not to tear the structure down, to use the structure as a base for the new church, to use the structure to continue telling the story of this community. In preserving what's already there, using it, is an important response to climate change. Why do you need to tear down a building if you can use your creativity to reuse it. You preserve it, you don't waste it. So this was what we did. We used the base, the original structure, as a base for a new series of roofs. Again, kunyari walang kuryente. So there's a tall ceiling that lets in the light, but of course in a controlled way. Lets the hot air escape up to windows in the upper part of the roof. And it becomes, again, an illustration that a space, a structure that responds directly to how the sun comes in, how the heat escapes, and how the breezes come in, gives you potential for interesting form. A recent project was a 10-hectare car plant. It's called a logistics center for the car company Hyundai in Laguna. It was 10 hectares of an abandoned factory, an unused textile factory. Unused, dark. And our first desire was to bring light and air into this space. It's a strong impression you get when you're confronted with a space that's completely dark. And so the desire to just bring in light and air in a natural way was the primary goal of this project. So we used the existing trusses, but we added these, what we call these light monitors that let the breezes flow and escape as they heat up out through these light monitors. They also bring in the light. This is a view of the complex. And we don't have time for the movie, but I just want to mention that this project was rated green, Kamagong, the highest rating of the Philippine Green Building Initiative. Okay, I have 6 minutes left. The next project I want to talk to is the National Museum of Natural History. It is the adaptive reuse of a building from 1939. It was built on Rizal Park as the Department of Agriculture. In the 1960s, it became the Department of Tourism. And a few years ago, it was decided to convert it into the National Museum of Natural History. So that first step of preserving this building and restoring it and creating an enclosed courtyard. The original building has a courtyard. This is a competition, and the requirement of the competition was that we enclose the central courtyard. So our idea for enclosing it was to create a dome, which we call it the Tree of Life courtyard. I will just go quickly into how it responds to climate. There's a section that shows how the galleries are going to be air-conditioned, but the public spaces will use natural ventilation. And we're drawing the air in from the park to come in and circulate and cool the courtyard, and to escape in the gap between there are two roofs here, 1 and 2. The hot air will escape in between those gaps, as well as through the oculus at the top of this dome. The dome is going to be insulated glass and insulated aluminum panels. I think we have just enough time for me to quickly jump through a video. Maybe you can turn off these front lights if possible. Oh, okay. So should I should stop? Oh, okay. Well, we can show this later, but I just want to show you the current state it's in. This is as of last Sunday, the building with its dome. And I will conclude with give me just 2 minutes. Because of this project, this discussion of mitigating climate change, we had a project to renovate the Santo Niño Church in Tacloban. And it was the strongest image there was the eye of the storm. So our response, the concept for the renovation was a response to that eye, the eye of the storm, as well as a response to the central feature of the church, which is the image of the Santo Niño. And the goal then was to combine the notion of the Eucharist. So this is the rebuilt church. We built a wall around it to catch the strong waves. And we simplified the interior such that the focus really becomes the Santo Niño. So I will conclude with a poem I wrote for that project. In the silence is God, in the child is God, in the Eucharist is God, in the silence is God. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Architect Dong. I think that, yeah, thank you. Well, it seems that for many of us, like it was for me, we never appreciated agriculture as something that could be sacred. No? Really, because it speaks of respect for God, respect for nature. And I hope on the practical side, many of us entrepreneurs build our offices, our factories. Now we see that there can be a beautiful way of building it, economical, with a clear consciousness of how to be respectful of the earth after learning everything we have learned in these days, and how really our principle of economy of relationship is we have to relate to the earth and have respect for the future generations to come. Yes? So thank you again, Architect Dom, for that. And now we prepare for the Holy Mass. The Bishop of our Diocese of Imus, and where the Cittadella is, has very graciously accepted our invitation to say the Holy Mass for us this morning. Bishop Reynaldo Evangelista.